I got a word
Karen?
just.
Oh, this all's gonna be here. I got a Sultan. Surfboard.
Well, she's not Florida.
So,
Right.
I got 5 spots and all these letters.
That's what Ian asked the last one, was you go on vacation to Florida?
My grandson's in
No.
Fort Wayne. That's
Really?
highest, yeah.
Are you
That's
kidding me?
my older brother, he's 18.
No.
He's
And,
okay?
Yes, he is, he is. I guess he and Riley are just roommate.
No.
Their apartment buildings are a year old. And so.
That's probably why I wouldn't go in there.
Apparently, they
Oh,
felt
okay.
safe enough, didn't need to evacuate, so. And this morning, he said, oh, we're out driving around.
Is
checking
it
the
orange?
Okay.
No.
I can't do that.
There she is. So they made.
I haven't.
Hi,
tried.
Karen.
It looks like-
She see
You
you?
wanna test this? Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, good. Let's see
Perfect.
the volume.
What were you looking at?
Okay, can you hear me better? She's doing Zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Karen's not here.
She's in California. How much is gas out there, Karen? I heard it's over $6 a gallon.
Haven't you been home before?
Oh, it's close to that.
Okay, 5.75 a gallon in Seattle.
Wow.
That's for
I thought you went
gas.
to Denver.
Oh, you didn't hear my story.
No, I'm
I
sorry.
flew into Denver. The next day, I flew to Seattle with my daughter and granddaughter, who was on a traveling ice hockey team. Spent a few days watching ice hockey games, checking out Seattle. Flew back to Denver. Tuesday, I flew from Denver back to Syracuse.
Okay.
So I spent a little bit of time in the airport.
spend time in the coffee bar.
Yeah, if I can find it. Takes me a while.
You're gonna work that around hurricanes, right?
Yeah, it's in March.
Oh.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, the last one through there was
Yeah.
before the last one, Hurricane Charlie.
This was just recently.
Oh, yeah, that one was Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico, yeah.
I almost died.
Yeah. One went through Cuba. Or was it, did Ian go through Cuba? Yeah, okay.
She does a fantastic job.
659.
Yeah, you can do something wrong. Why mess up the chance?
Hey, I moved.
Oh.
Okay. Call this meeting to order.
Karen,
Here.
Lee.
Here.
Charlie.
Here.
Joe. Here.
Here. Please stand for the pledge. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Anybody like to be heard for privilege of the floor? Oh. Councilperson Thompson will be using the video conferencing as she is out of the state. And Supervisor Crawford gave notice of a special meeting on September 27th, 2022. Which he sent an email to all town board members and town clerk. He also placed a notice in the town board and town clerk's mailbox on September 28th, 2022. Now, would anybody like to be heard with the privilege of the floor?
Yes, now.
No? All right, so I called this meeting. It's going on the snowplow contract in the county. After last meeting, we didn't even get a second. I was under the misunderstanding that I couldn't make a second. We all were, I think. It was later clarified to even vote on it. I then contacted Brian Soper, told him what we had discussed, what we wanted to change, what Kevin Cox's recommendations were to change in the contract. He looked at that, okayed that, forwarded it to their attorney. Their attorney looked at it. They actually liked the mediation statement better than what they had used. Brian was in agreement and had their attorney had the phrase complete to the before trip, like we discussed, we'd want it done and change, I believe it was section 10, which stated the arbitration of the mediation. He then returned that to me, so I called this meeting, so we can vote on, and I believe these are the changes we wanted made. Here we are. One, couple other things I'd like to reiterate is this was originally gonna be a 3-year contract. When this county supervisors met with the president of the county superintendent's committee, expressed that we wanted to change to a 1-year contract, wanted the fuel surcharge added. That was done. We changed it to a 1-year contract. With that being said, they're gonna start renegotiating, reworking the contract again in April. After everybody's done it for a season, to see how it went, what they can change, what they can make better, what needs to be changed. This will only be done for towns that sign a contract this first year. If you do not sign a contract this first year, you will not be involved in it, you will not even be offered a contract in the following years until the end of whatever they do. If they do a 2-year, 3-year, 5-year, whatever their next contract is, the towns that opt out of signing it this year will not even be offered that. My thoughts are, maybe this isn't perfect, I think it's fair. County superintendent spent a lot of time, exhausted themselves working on this, trying to make it feasible for everybody, acceptable to everybody. And this is what they presented us with. I think the town's gonna lose a lot if we do not pass this. We're gonna lose a lot out of the budget. We're gonna put the townspeople in a predicament where the roads aren't gonna be cared for as good as they are with us doing it locally. What I got to say.
You can't.
You can't do that beforehand.
So are we discussing it now? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm not
that's-
sure of what the
No,
form
that's-
is, what the
no,
process
we're-
is going to be.
It's under old business, so we can discuss it. I don't wanna be, I mean, I feel it's been beat to death. I don't wanna be here till 10 o'clock tonight discussing it.
Right. I don't feel that it, for me, it doesn't meet the recommendation that our attorney has given us.
What the-
So, okay, the current contract, in term, the arbitration, substituting mediation for arbitration, yes. But it's still fuzzy about the language for a trip and how we get compensated.
So, I don't know how you make it any simpler. A trip is when our trucks go out and plow the entire town. Satisfied that the roads are salted, plowed, treated, passed.
So I need to be real clear on this. And this is probably pretty normal
Mhm.
for the highway to go out and possibly only do North Sterling and maybe Irwin Road, Old State Road, to get the drifts. And yet, if it's not a complete trip, now is it a complete trip, the whole town of Sterling, or is it one route?
No, the complete trip.
Is
the
all
entire
20
route, yes. That's
5
defined,
miles.
that's
Okay.
defined clearly in it.
Correct.
That's what the 25%
So you-
overage is.
Okay, okay, there I would like some help with understanding that 25% overage, but go back, I wanna finish the processing of the trip, so that if the town goes out and bumps back the drifts on Irwin Road, Old State Road, and only that area, it's not a complete trip, then the town does not get compensated for it. Is that correct? Am I understanding that?
There's
correctly?
no way to record that. The intention is we will be compensated because of the 25% overage that was placed on
Okay, now
the
I
entire trip.
would like some, and if it's okay with you, Chair, I would like to ask our highway superintendent, who has studied the contract very thoroughly, in my opinion, and his thoughts about that.
So the 25%, if you look at Brian's cell formula in the Excel spreadsheet, it's 25% of,
This is, I'd like to adjust this. This contract was presented to Brian by the Cuba County Highway Superintendent's Committee. Brian
right?
used that contract
So hold on,
and
Scott.
accepted it. Okay,
So,
that's you, everybody says Brian's contract. Okay?
Brian-
It's no more Brian's contract than it's my contract.
Okay, so fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So the contract that's being proposed was based on an operational plan that Brian and the committee, the superintendent committee, worked through. In the calculation for that 25%, that cell that's there, if you open that cell up, you'll see that it represents 25% of equipment and 25% of labor. It doesn't include 25% of sand and salt. I reached out to one of the lead negotiators for the highway superintendents. And I asked him if that 25% was ever to include, because I've never heard that in the conversations that I've been involved in, and I was at every meeting. And actually, I was pushing on this because it's such, the town of Sterling is more of an anomaly compared to the rest of the towns, due to the fact of where we are, and the fact that we're connected to Oswego with those two main roads. So he commented to me and he said, no, that was never to be part of that 25%. That 25% is to cover my time, my truck. It's to cover the wingman. It's to cover the consumables, the wearable parts on the plow equipment, the cutting edges, the conveyor chains that break. It's to cover the damage to the truck that occurs when you plow county roads. If you catch a bad culvert crossing and you pop a wing off, like we did last year. That's what that 25% was for. It's for the front end loader to go and clean the intersections out on county roads and the labor associated with that. That was what that 25%.
Or I would think it would be if you have to get the grader out, you push banks back, which would be similar to.
We don't have a grader.
Well, other
But-
towns do.
But that was the understanding. It wasn't to go and, you know, if we run the night truck and we focus on these other roads like Old State and Irwin, and we run them 3 or 4 times more than what's typically done for the other roads because they don't need it. That was not part of that 25%.
That's not how I explained it to me. the way I understood it.
But I'm saying if you look at the math and you think about that logic right there, and then the fact that what I just said about, I reached out to one of the lead negotiators who you know, he said no. And he said this was the second time he's heard this come up.
Is that hearsay? By
What?
what he said?
What's that?
what you said that this guy said.
No, that's not hearsay. He was one of the lead negotiators.
Yeah, but you don't have it in writing. But he said that.
It's the 25%, the way I was explaining it to was.
You're free to
anything-
call him and ask him yourself.
I know, but
Yeah.
I've heard this before, if it's not in writing, it's hearsay. I mean,
I don't know why he would say something like
I
that.
don't, well,
We discussed this.
But I'm
Well,
the point I'm trying to make is that I pushed hard when I was involved in this because of the fact that Thomas Sterling, we can run Old State 5 or 6 times and run the south end once or not at all, depending on where that lake effect is setting up. And there was no, and that's why I had a hard time with the logic here as it relates to how a trip is defined, because it doesn't work for our town. And here's the other thing. So the whole purpose of this was to save the county money. What better way to utilize the county's finances where it's focused on what you're actually servicing versus forcing towns to cover roads that may not need the service?
This was, when this all started, and correct me if I'm wrong, when this all started, the county wanted to go to a time and material scenario.
That's right. And there
This
was
is exactly, and you were against it,
I was,
all the towns were against it, and now this is right back, you're exactly back to, let's do it time and material, let's get paid for what we're doing.
so what we were told was this, Scott, was that it was an all or nothing deal. That was what we were told. So there was a lot of concern about the paperwork related to the time and material part, because the county, when they do time and material for the state right now, they typically run a single route that's a single road, maybe 2, all the way to the one end, turn around and come back. There may be one intersection in between or 2, but they're not cleaning those intersections unless it involves another state road, as I understand it. So it's a pretty straightforward process to do that when you're working for the state. But here in the town, where you may have 4 intersections or 5 intersections, and you're in a whiteout, and you're trying to document all this per the
You're
TNM.
not, right,
So
but that's what you put in here that you wanted in your,
so what they did is they went to Wayne County, because Wayne County has a hybrid. It's TNM, but it reduces the paperwork as it relates to the safety considerations that we're talking about for the operators who have to try to document this and get the job done, you know, bouncing from town road to county road to town road to county road, and try to focus on the road and not being run off the road. We're in versus writing down, I got on this road. So, but the point I'm trying to make, it was a hybrid that Wayne County has used, and it has worked, and therefore Brian was receptive to the idea. And that's how it developed.
that's, I mean, everybody saw that it worked. So I don't know why it wouldn't work for us.
I
I mean,
think,
the statement you made where you wanted, you know, section B1 or whatever, where you're basically wanting them to do what they were trying to get away with
so,
putting every time they're on a road, how long they're on that road.
so if you look at
That's
that.
getting that paperwork back. to us.
Yeah, if you look at B1, so there's a list of county roads, right? So they can sit there and they don't have to do any calculation. All they have to do is make a mark. I went down Old State Road 3 times. I make 3 slashes. And I went down Irwin twice. I make 2 more slashes. At the end of their trip, or at the end of the day, at the end of their shift, they bring that to me. I do all the calculations. But then, Brian, when he receives this, or when the county receives this, they'll sit there and say, the county or the town of Sterling was on these roads 6 times here, 4 times there, 3 times here, and it adds up to these many miles. We based a formula that was based on how many base miles are in the town of Sterling that they want us to plow. So the idea is to simply summarize or make a summation of those miles. I do that based on what the men hand in, based on these simple little tick marks on these individual roads. It's real simple. That's something they can do, even at the end of their.
They should do it at the end of the shift. They shouldn't be
That's-
writing or doing anything at all. when they're driving.
That's exactly right, and that was why I made it so simple, was that at the end of the shift, they can sit there and say, I ran Oak State 4 times, I ran Irwin twice, I ran Gray twice, I ran McFarland and Farden twice, and it just, that's something they can compile that, but they're not sitting there looking at their watch or trying to figure out all the other matrix that were originally proposed. That comes back to me. I do the math. I divide it by, currently it's like, what is it, 25.43 miles. And that equals the number of trips. The county is getting the full value of the service of that truck and that manpower on the roads that need it most, as compared to having a truck go down on the south end with a plow up because the roads are clear. And I can't even imagine if by the time, if I was trying to keep up with this, you know, if we were doing 3 trips on Old State, and I'd say, all right, Brandon, go down to the south end with your plow up and drive by 3 times down there. I'm gonna get some strange looks. You are too. What are you guys doing, driving by without the plows down? Why are you even out here? It's a beautiful day, it's sunny, but they don't know on the north end, it's blowing like a bastard. So that was what I was trying to do here. I'm not trying to cheat the county. I'm trying to make sure that the county's financial resources are used to their best ability. I'm looking at it from the standpoint that our town resources that are being invested into this process are being used to the most efficient means possible. So we all know the times we're in, right? We know these trucks are 1.5 to 2 years
Right,
out.
what's your proposal if this doesn't pass? And we lose 140, 150, 160,
So,
$170,000.
Yeah, so let's,
The budget.
let's talk about that. So the county's up here to save money, right?
Yeah,
So last foul season, the budget was, the flat rate amount to plow county roads was $173,000. That was for 21-22. So they came back. Town of Sterling is the highest paid town. So we're at $6,100. They reduced us down to $5,800 and took 2/3 of that to arrive at roughly $99,000. So if you take 173 minus 99, the county effectively has already removed $88,000 with the exception that they would pay us if we exceed that. But we've already, if we do have a light winter, we've lost already $88,000. And so the point I'm trying to make.
but me as a taxpayer, when we pay property tax, part of that goes to the county. So if I'm a county taxpayer, I don't wanna be paying money to the county's giving to the town for work that they're not doing. They're not, if they're paying you,
So
this is
there's,
more fair from the county aspect. of how
well, the other way of
it's
looking at it like that, Scott, and I can flip it right back on you, is that now the county's up here doing that work that they would have been paying us. And if, maybe they can do it cheaper, I don't know. So it goes back to what side of the ledger you wanna look at, what bucket do you want?
I wanna look at what's best for the townspeople. I don't think that people trying to get to work or get home from work, the number of people that live in Fairhaven, that work in Oswego, that drive Old State Road every day, that I've heard many of them say they won't even travel Old State Road anymore, they'll travel 104, because they don't think it's gonna be plowed at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning when we're trying to get back and forth to Oswego. The ability of emergency vehicles to get up and down the roads, the county roads, when we're driving over the roads anyways. We have to drive over probably, I haven't gone out and done it, maybe you have, if all we plowed our town roads, we've gotta drive over probably 80% of the county roads in this town to service our town roads.
So there's 46 miles of town roads, there's 28 miles of county roads.
But you're gonna have to drive over,
You're gonna have to go over both, right? That's right. So
you're driving over them anyways.
So my point to you is this, is that I've never seen a state truck on a town road. I've never seen a county truck on a town road. with the exception of last year on Nichols, when the county took back Marville Crockett Road and tried to soften that loss of revenue by plowing Nichols Road. But the point of it is that each municipality has their jurisdiction. The state has theirs. We don't complain about the state. We don't try to plow for the state. We will drop our plow when we come down a state road. If they're falling behind, we come off Sterling Station, we'll drop the plow to come back to our garage and other places. But the point I'm trying to make is that as it relates to where the funds are flowing, it's on the county to, if they decide, if this is what the board decides, it's on the county to provide the same level of service that we provide here, because Brian lives here too.
And I'm sure they'll try. But
Yeah,
that's-
the point is, when the first year I was here, Brian was on that phone with me almost daily. And the point I'm trying to make is that, you know, there's no one better that understands the nature of these roads.
But back to my question,
Mhm.
if we're not plowing all these roads, we don't need all the equipment we have, we don't need all the manpower we have. We've got a big budget loss, how are we gonna?
And I think that's something that needs to be evaluated, you know, next year. After we figure out how this all works, or flows or doesn't work. So T&M typically, historically, for Cayuga County and Oswego County has not worked.
Right, that's why this isn't T&M.
Well, it's a hybrid of T&M. So it's based on T&M from the standpoint that it's all rate-based. The hybrid was try to minimize the amount of paperwork that the guy in the truck is doing in order to document what's being done.
There's with the ability now, we have a GPS system, you could put GPS systems in the truck with geofences and you can totally eliminate that. And maybe that's where things will go,
It could be you and I
but
talked about
I
that.
don't think, I think this is a fair contract. When we talked before, you thought, you spoke like you thought it was fair with the addition of the fuel surcharge.
In the cleanup of the trip. In the cleanup of the trip.
I think this is as clean as we're gonna get it. I
Yeah.
understand it. I don't think it's perfect. I think it's fair. I honestly do. I was totally against when they started this. I was totally against it. I was. I think they worked hard. They got something here that's fair. I think next year, once we go through a season with it, there's the ability to sit down,
So the question I've
go through
got,
it.
the question I have, Scott, is this: why wouldn't the county want to modify the definition of the trip to help out Sterling and their own financial resources? Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they?
I don't know.
That's my question. Why wouldn't they? This is
That's a question that everybody's had.
but it's such a fair
This is a
question.
question that should have been asked to them.
It
I
was,
don't know.
it was
I-
asked multiple times. As I
Because let's face
understand it.
it, they're dealing with, and I've been to these meetings, these supervisor meetings. Us up here in Sterling are the princesses. We get paid more than anybody else.
But you know
All
why?
this, so
But you know
we're trying
why?
to make it more equal.
So I can tell you a story, and you can, and I don't have it in writing, Lee. So the story is that Wally, the former highway superintendent for Cato, sat down with, I believe, the former county highway superintendent, Ozzie, I believe is who he went by. And I believe that whoever the county attorney was, it may have been Ray Sand back then. This was in the 90s. So the reason the town of Sterling is paid as high, is the highest paid town, and Wally spoke to this in the superintendent's meeting many a time. He's retired, but he's the treasurer. He said the reason Sterling is paid the most, and he made it, but people kind of, look down on him because Sterling's the highest one. And I kept my mouth shut, was because it was all based on the numbers. The numbers of the amount of sand that we provided on our roads, the amount of hours our men were on the roads. It was all related to that big pond out there that's 60 miles across, and there's nothing stopping it until it hits us. That's why. So, and Wally spoke to it and said.
Well, I'm
Yeah, so-
I'm not saying we don't deserve it.
So
I'm
I
saying
just,
they have to sell it to us.
I'm just saying that that was the basis of it. When people say we're the highest paid, so we should eat crow. I'm thinking, well, that's not what the man said who sat in the room that helped develop these numbers, and he wasn't biased. It was based on, I would imagine it was Jimmy Sherman that was involved in that. So anyways, for what it's worth.
You got anything, Lee, Charlie? Joan, you got?
Well, I think I'm at liberty to read because I really defer to, obviously, Dan. I wanted to hear his thoughts. And I also, Kevin, Cox, our attorney, welcome his input. Obviously, the one concern that Kevin Cox had, our attorney, was the arbitration, which was substitute with the mediation. However, there's also, rather than the current language, which could be construed to be an all or nothing payment arrangement, perhaps the language should be changed to state that the town will be compensated for the miles of county roads that it actually plows. And I think that what you're talking about addresses that. I have a concern if my perception is an all or nothing. You either do a full trip or you don't get reimbursed. Where's that? That's not fair to the taxpayers.
That's right. We're not being treated fair. Not for this topic. Because we're burning resources on things that don't need it. It's never been how the town's operated when we have wind events or anything
But
else.
the previous contract, we were paid center line mile. That's how it was figured, is the contract was based on, we get $6,200 per center line mile.
Right,
Well, there's roughly 26 miles in the town.
right.
We plowed 20 of it, maybe 80 times. We plowed the other 6 miles 150 times.
It was all.
That's still the same thing. You're looking at, well, we're not gonna pay you 20 miles at $5,000 a center line mile. We're gonna pay you 6 miles at $7,000 a mile. It's all averaged in. Before it was figured on a per mile basis on how much it was gonna take to maintain that. And we plowed and took care of what needed to be taken care of.
But we were paid $172,000.
And if we plow
So,
enough times, we'll get paid that this time.
right, but we're wasting the effort on these roads that don't need it to
If
justify
you're
it.
getting paid to plow them,
But why would you do that?
I wouldn't think you would. I think.
I mean, would you
tend to the
do
road.
that? Would you plow your driveway? If it's clean?
No, I wouldn't.
And you would
But you're-
drive up and down
But
it?
you're saying you're going to. I'm saying that if we take care of Old State Road or where it needs it. This is what's presented. I don't, like I said, I don't think it's perfect.
I just work the
I
logic,
think
Scott.
it's,
I just
I
work,
think it's better next year when it goes to arbitration. I'd like to think we're gonna be part of that.
well, let's hope it doesn't go to arbitration.
But next year when they start.
No, you said,
negotiation,
I thought I heard you say arbitration.
Negotiation, I meant negotiation.
Dan, do you think the roads are gonna be, if the county plows the roads, gonna be as well maintained as the town does?
So this is what I witnessed, Lee, on Martville Road. They got off to a rough start. Okay? I met Brian and the county sheriff on Martville Road one day. There were 6 or 8 inches on it and our roads were bare, right? And Brian made a comment that it's really dark and sterling. That was a direct reflection back to the Ira barn, in my opinion. So, or he was trying to make a comment to me over the radio that's like, I see this. And there was only one other time that I reached out to Brian, and that was when Marville Road was icing. And I called and I reached out to him and they got a truck up here to take care of it. But they apply 100% salt, whereas we provide salt and sand. Once they got their men dialed in to taking care of Martville Road, it improved.
That's what's going on.
I
So
understand.
when they're coming out of Ira, So what time are they gonna be starting in the morning?
That'll come down to their operations, right? Yeah, I mean,
It's
they're-
not gonna be as well maintained. It can't be.
Well, and plus, I mean, I'm thinking of all the county roads we're gonna drive over to go plow our town roads that. Now we could have been being paid to plow that, now we're just driving over. for money.
it's a dilemma, Scott. I'm not gonna tell you, it's not a dilemma. The problem that exists is that it's gonna look really strange with us going down these roads and parts of town to try to justify a trip.
It'll still look funny driving over the roads with a plow up too.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
well,
When you're-
I know it, it's,
So it's only a 1-year deal. I got it back. It's only a 1-year deal.
well, my point of view is this, is that, and it goes back, so I've heard this all or nothing, since the beginning. It's take it or leave it, take it or leave it, take it or leave it. You guys push back and look at what we got. We got the mediation terms in. I would say, I would recommend that you push again and see if we can't get this trip changed. Because they've moved when, they know they can't do what they need up here
This has
logistically as
got to be
well.
signed they want it signed October 10th. It's no more negotiation. They say they've got the trucks and the manpower. It's,
Well, there
this
you,
should have been
so-
something,
so
this should
Scott-
have,
so,
and I told this to Brian and he said, no, that's the way it is, the 25% should cover it. That's the way it is. He thinks it's fair. He was the
do you think,
superintendent for a lot of years.
do you think
He thinks
450
it's
for
fair.
hauling sand is fair? You and I talked about it at the
I-
beginning, and you and I
It's-
said 750. So,
Probably it should be, if you're in it to make money, I don't know, this is what was presented, this was what was negotiated, and presented, where at the end of it, I was told they're not changing anything else, that's
but they
take it
have.
or leave it.
But they
So,
have. But they have. So I've been involved in negotiations and I've been right down to the 11th hour, literally. I'm just saying that that's something the board needs to consider. They have moved once after they've told us multiple
I'm
times.
I'm not getting in the chicken game, playing with the taxpayers' money and the people's,
If I may.
condition of the roads.
Okay. You are 1/5 of this legislative body.
I know I am, and I'm not, okay,
So when you say you speak as if, and obviously it's a good thing you're saying in your opinion. But I have a concern that it may present that that's what all of us are thinking, Scott.
all right,
I just
okay.
want to
No,
clarify.
and
that.
everybody's got their opinion, but we had a meeting last week. We spent 45 minutes discussing this, and what was said should be changed in it. And if I'm wrong, somebody tell me I'm wrong, but we sat and discussed what should be changed in it. I presented that to Brian, and he changed it. This was when the town supervisors got together, we had said if they change this, the majority, basically all the town supervisors said, this looks acceptable. Every time they change something, it's like, nope, we want more, we want more, we want more. I don't think that's what we should be doing at the 11th hour. I think if we wanted other things changed, it should have been presented before.
I think the contract should have been presented. I think I might have had that contract 1 week, maybe, in advance of when we discussed it. And our opinion, our attorney's opinion, I received the same day, the September 19th meeting. That didn't give me a lot of time to really reach out and get information from other resources to better understand that. Okay?
Right.
So my thought, I still go back to, our attorney gave us some advice. I would like to go back and have the guidance with our attorney. The county has its attorney. I would welcome our attorney. The county attorney represents the county. I would like our town attorney, who represents us, to help us.
Why wasn't any of this brought up at the last meeting?
Well, that's the main reason I didn't sign it, because he didn't recommend that we do that until we made some changes.
Why you gonna sign what?
Vote vote on the contract myself. That's the only reason why I didn't. If we don't trust our attorney, what are we paying him for? And I know he knows a lot more about legalities than I do.
We changed what he wanted, and we talked about the language, and changed the language to what
So,
we
That
decided.
decision was an executive session. And I don't think I contributed a whole lot to that executive session. I listened.
Okay,
So that I don't, because it gets a little weird, because you cannot be making decisions.
right, but all week,
official decisions.
everybody's been on the email with the attorney, and nobody commented anything to the attorney. that-
You're generalizing. Everybody, nobody.
The town board was all included on it, nobody commented.
Did
I'm
we also ask for the language to be changed for the trip? Because that was not changed. So not all of the changes that we asked for was.
The language,
The word complete.
the word complete,
I
That was-
understand.
that is changed.
That was added, Karen.
Yep, the word
That
complete
was
was added. Yep.
Okay.
Anything else?
I just think it's foolish if we don't pass it. For 1 year. If we don't like it, then we can bow out of it next year.
Or work on another
And work
solution.
on it. But if we don't pass it, then we don't have any choices after that. We're gonna be driving over the roads and not plowing. The county's gonna be plowing our roads, and we're not gonna be plowed as well. Comes down to a safety issue for people driving the roads. I think the town ought to be plowing roads.
I agree.
Okay.
However, the terms need to be clearly spelled out, and they are not clearly spelled out according to our own attorney. Right? Like you said.
Well,
we've been-
Okay, Brian Soper came to the last meeting to answer the questions, to clarify. Anybody that had questions to it, to clarify, I don't remember a lot of people asking questions or listening to what he was
Oh,
saying.
I asked him a few questions, but I don't know if they're in the minutes. So I said, do you have the equipment to plow the roads, county roads here? And he said, yes. Do you have the manpower to do that? So I remember I asked a few questions. I asked how
Sure.
many
About what they're
contracts,
gonna do, not about our.
I asked how many contracts had been returned signed. Do you remember what he said?
He said a few, and he wasn't sure.
Right. Well, at first it was one, but then he narrowed it down to, well, maybe half a dozen or so. So because initially I got the impression that we were the ones that were not signing a contract. But then I start hearing numbers and I'm thinking, well, we're not the only town that's having concerns with the terms of the contract.
Well, a lot of towns had town board meetings, either, so.
Well, I just think that I would follow the attorney's advice, and we need to clarify a couple of areas, and I think that's what I heard our highway superintendent say about the trip. Make sure we're real clear on that, and you provided a possible solution that wouldn't be too cumbersome to the highwaymen if they just do a little
Little tick
yeah,
mark.
little tick mark,
Yeah, and it's fair to the county,
right,
and it's
Right.
fair to the taxpayer here in this town.
right.
I-
Right. And I don't see why that would be problematic. It's not like making a major change to the terms of the contract. It's just the process for collecting the data.
Can we hear from our county legislator, see what he has to say?
Yeah.
Would you like that?
Well, the county is not trying to make money off of anybody. They're trying to make it fair for all the taxpayers, whether they're in District 1 or the county. I wasn't part of the negotiations, I can't respond to those things except to say that there was a whole team of people that put it together. That tried to make it fair for everybody, whether you lived in the southern end of the county or the northern. Everybody's rates are different, as I understand it, depending on what district or town you live in, or village. So, I was against the 3-year contract, and I think we got the 1-year contract in. I think that's a good thing. I think that some things were said by Dan tonight, on keeping track, which would be better for negotiations next year to understand. And I think that, I think that as Brian said at the meeting last time, yes, they have the manpower, they have the trucks, but he did say it might not be as good as it is now. And that's all something to work through. You can attempt to send it back. Time is of the essence. But they're pulling the trigger on October, I think you have to have it back October 11th, which is the day after Columbus Day.
You have
Or
a
the
week.
12th, whatever that Tuesday is.
Yeah, you have a week. You have this coming week to get this done.
But again, it's been worked on, this started back in May or June. So, and if you didn't have access to the contract until a week ago, that's something you should have been discussing with Dan prior to tonight's meeting, or whoever, because the negotiations to get that contract written, and I have to say, it wasn't Brian Soper contract, it was a contract that was agreed about with a group of people that developed it. All right? You know, I heard what Dan said about, they might go down Old State Road 5 times and never hit up anything else. I think he should keep track of that. I think that would be a good thing to know next time. They tried to, it appears as though they tried to do a one size fits all, with the exception of the rate for each community. And that was based on what your hourly rate for your employees are, what your benefit package is and stuff. Because the county's not looking to make money, we're just trying to be more efficient with how we spend the money that we collect. Just like you guys try to do. Try to be as efficient as you can with the money. We're in the business of running government, so we should be running it like a business. Except, we're not in it to make a profit. We're in it to make sure we cover our costs and we give the constituents and residents of our communities the best product possible. It's really up to you. I don't want to tell you what to do or not do to influence anybody. I think it would be, I think the important thing that Brian said is that our constituents and residents will not be as well served until they figure it out, because they're coming out of Iowa. But they'll figure it out, as Dan alluded to with a couple of roads, that once they figured it out,
It improved.
it improved. And that's with anybody that's doing something for the first time. New employees, first time routes, whatever it is.
Can I jump in?
Sure, absolutely.
So to Jim's point, and I think this is what I've been trying to say, is that, and to Lee, to your point, is that we're lifting our plows up one way or the other. And to what Jim's saying is that the best thing to do is make sure that whatever we're doing makes sense to the taxpayers in the most meaningful way. In the most meaningful way, in my mind, is that this trip reflects how we do business up here relating to removing snow. That means that the county taxes are being applied 100% to the removal of snow, not trying to meet a term in the contract that can be easily modified within this coming week so that everyone is satisfied as it relates to the use of the resources that are available, both the physical resources and the financial resources. I can't think of a better way of doing it. I've struggled with this time and again. I'm a pretty logical guy.
I'll say what I said at the last meeting. You can, again, send in your changes. Time is of the essence. They came, but a whole group of people came up with this. I know it's a one size fits all, except the rate's different. And they developed this trip because people were, and I'm saying this only from what I hear at legislator meetings. People, towns were complaining about, the paperwork and stuff, which I didn't think was a that big of a deal, put a little check mark that you did something, but I'm not those people, so.
So the check mark scenario that I proposed was not, this is my own idea,
But, well,
yeah.
again, you can try to send it back. It's really up to you guys. You're at the 11th hour. Again, a group of people developed it. I'm sorry, kind of repeat myself, but you get next week, that's it. The county is gonna have to make some decisions on some stuff themselves based on the contracts that come back. Now, people have till, is the 11th Tuesday? I don't know.
It's Tuesday.
Whatever that Tuesday is following Columbus Day. So right now, about 50% I understand of the contracts are in. There's 3 villages that actually do plowing for the county. I learned something new. I didn't realize that. They're, you know, and I've talked to all 3 of them and they're going over their stuff. And probably checking with their attorneys. Victory, as far as, I haven't heard how they voted and whether they turned theirs in or not. I can reach out to them tomorrow, but when I talked to Patrick Coleman and I talked to Mike Wiggins, they were only looking for comments from their attorney. Other than that, they were ready to sign. So as far as our district goes, looks like Victory's on board and we're waiting to hear from Sterling.
And I want to clarify something. When I said a week before, it was the September 19th town board meeting. I had been given the contract a week before that. And we got our feedback from our attorney that same day, or at least I did, for that September 19th town board meeting.
Unfortunately, we can't have every member of every town board and so forth participate in every meeting. Just like the county legislator can't participate in every meeting in the budget. I get copies of the budget, I don't get to participate in every meeting, but I have to hope and depend. Just as when I first became mayor, I didn't get to participate in the first budget, but I have to hope that hope's not a plan. So I had to think that those people did the best job they possibly could at that time, but to come up with that budget or to come up with that agreement. I think it's important that we made it a 1-year agreement. That would have, nothing less would have been acceptable because we don't know how it's gonna work. And we want to be able to make adjustments based on what actually happens so that we can then better make better changes than a 3-year contract could have put. I wasn't looking to put District 1 in a hole. And I don't think the county was either. And so I think that was an easy sell. It was an easy lift to say 1 year is going to be better than 3. Maybe the next one could be a 3-year contract because everybody will have a chance to keep good records of. That's going to be the key too. Each town that shows up with good records of what happened is going to be important to making any modifications or changes in the next negotiation. And that could be a 3-year contract. Not participating, my understanding, not participating, and that's something you folks have to decide, is then that it's been shared with the county legislature that they would just work with the towns that did participate because they know they have people they want to work with. That may be stamping their foot and taking a hard stance, but it may not be.
Is that in writing? Did the county legislators do a vote and say,
No,
okay?
they did
okay.
not.
So it's not.
That's what I say. Somebody could be putting their foot down or something, but
Right.
that could change. But again, if the county county has to start buying trucks and doing other stuff, it may not take there, I don't know.
If they're gonna manpower up to do it, they're not gonna do it for 1 year. and then-
Right, and I don't think, I'm not saying I don't want the town to do it, all I'm saying is let's clarify that language a little bit. It shouldn't cost anybody a whole lot more, and it makes more sense with the taxpayers' money, that we're not, there's a phrase for it, when you're just out there going around making work, so you can get a trip, a full trip in, unless I'm misunderstanding how this is plopped. So I think Dan, it sounds like, and I would defer to Dan, he's the one that's in the trenches and he's doing this. Would know with that, whether that would work or not. I would like to run it by our attorney, maybe we can do that Monday. And we can beam out something, we're not like rewriting the whole contract, it's just still that ambiguous way of interpreting a trip. And then maybe we can work on tweaking that. That's my thought on
You got anything, Karen?
I would really like to have the town do the roads, but I do believe that we do need to gel up the contract. And I think that perhaps maybe Dan and Kevin might be able to, grab some things together. I know that it was a one size fits all contract and they did the best they can. And I think they really did a good job. It just, Sterling is an extreme, different town than the rest of Cayuga County. So, I don't think we're asking to be really like the special princess that they have been saying that we are. But I think we do need to make sure that the resources are, handled responsibly and efficient for the taxpayers and for the county.
Got any more, Charlie?
Well, that's been my thoughts all along. Dan's gonna live and breathe it all winter, and so are his men. They should have a very serious voice in the input on what they think is fair, what's not fair, sort that out. And have our lawyers sort through to make sure what's legal, what's not legal. And so, the guys get paid for what they're doing, when they're doing it, how often they're doing it. I'm with, I think everybody else here that pays taxes. This is not a money-making ordeal. This is to plow and keep our roads safe and things like that. So I just want to make sure that it's well written and people are getting paid to keep them well taken care of, and that gets done. So I think Dan definitely needs to be involved. I think our lawyer needs to be involved, and this contract needs to say what is requested to accomplish that. Nothing more, nothing less. Again, we're not here to make money, we're here to keep the public safe, including my family, which I care deeply about. I think that's our whole purpose of talking about this, is about keeping the roads safe and plowed.
And using the financial resources,
Exactly.
on those roads.
Taxpayer people, sure.
Need it.
The guys are gonna get paid regardless if they plow any roads or not. If we have to look at the town, if we're paying a guy to drive over county roads without plowing,
I'm not saying
if we
we're
could
doing
be
that. I'm
getting
not
paid to
saying we
do that
have
at the same time, then that.
to. Understood, but they're not gonna get the hours in that's normal snow plowing. If they're driving over with the plow up in the air, their boots gonna go speed limit, coming in,
Well,
coming out.
if we don't plow the county roads, we don't need all the
Why
money
wouldn't
we
we
got, they're
not?
not gonna make.
Why wouldn't we not plow the county roads as we have for years?
Well, because if we don't accept this contract, we're not plowing the roads.
understood, but why is this change all of a sudden this year? And what is the purpose of this change? No one has explained to me that yet, what the genuine purpose of this is about.
It's to be more efficient, so the county's not paying towns to not plow roads over
What they're gonna spend county money to pay trucks, drivers, time and material and all that stuff, that all costs too. So I don't think they're losing money by paying the town for what little bit they pay the town to do. I mean, if you had to hire a whole new section of people to do what the town does up here at the northern end of Cuyahoga County, take care of the roads.
Well, that's
that
understood,
doesn't
what I'm
make any
saying is
sense.
if we're not.
If you said this to be more efficient, we don't have to be more efficient with the county's money. In my opinion, I'm just saying, this common sense says that. So I'm just saying is, let's get these guys, if we're not gonna sign this, to sit down and come up with something that we can sign. But they need to be heavily involved with it, because they're living and breathing it.
They've
You
been
and I are
doing this
sitting
for
down
a
and
year, Charlie. They've been working on it for a year.
Well, let's put it down as 1 week, it's gotta be done. See, that's the problem, we just throw something out there and then wait for everybody's opinion to come in.
We did this 2 weeks ago, nobody would even vote on it, everybody wanted to walk away.
Because,
I took the initiative to say, this is what we had talked about changing. It got it changed and presented, and now, nope, this isn't good enough, we wanna do it, am I wrong?
well, apparently it wasn't all
It's so,
changed.
if we spend another week and do this and, yep, well, no, that, we forgot about this here, let's change this.
But you can't-
No,
I understand it's not open-ended.
vote on it, and
I think we ought to sign this contract. It's only for a year. And see how it works. And then modify it, so maybe it'll run more efficient.
in the
But
spring.
to have somebody drive up from Ira to plow out the county roads and not be plowed as well as the town does, I think it's a big mistake for the people who live in this town.
I think they'll lead to what Jim was saying, is that we have a week to see if we can't get this modified to reflect.
We've had
Well, Scott,
a
we've
lot
got,
of time, and nothing's, I mean,
well, as I understand it,
I look at it that we're playing chicken, that we're
I don't-
bluffing them,
I don't,
bumping chests, I don't think that's what we should.
I don't think we're bluffing. I don't feel as if I'm bluffing on this
And
trip
the town
thing.
loses.
Well, not if they're receptive to it, like,
Yeah,
I mean, they were,
it's a big if.
you went to them with the mediation.
They did this.
And prior to, but prior to that it was take it or leave it. I've heard that word for a long time. Take it or leave it.
I think the time is done. So,
Can I get a motion to vote on the proposed county plow contract?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Karen,
No,
Lee,
Yes.
Charlie,
Not if everybody's not on board, no.
Joan,
No,
Yes.
Yeah.
Motion?
Make a motion to adjourn.
I
The privilege
was,
of the
I'm
board.
gonna ask if we could get a motion to authorize Dan to meet with Kevin to come up with a proposal that would reflect what our attorney is suggesting, as well as with Dan's input. And possibly get that done, start it tomorrow and Monday, and have it beamed over to the county perhaps by Tuesday. It shouldn't be too complicated, because you've mentioned attachment B1. Do you think there'd be any need for anything else that would be basically it, and it's basically clarifying about the trip, am I right? With
That is correct.
It's
I
not
got a
clarifying
question,
the trip.
if they don't change it, then what are we gonna do? We're still gonna vote no?
What do you mean if they don't change it?
If it doesn't get changed, the county doesn't accept that proposal, it doesn't get changed, the contract, it reads as it is now.
So again, you're saying this is all or nothing. That's what I'm hearing.
No,
I think it is. I presented Dan's concerns to Brian a number of times, my own concerns, and
Right, but anything that documented and showed to our lawyer and asked to see.
he's looked at it. Dan shared the changes before with him. I mean, this months ago.
Right, but he hasn't had direction from the board.
What's the second, your motion, Joe? That's what we do. We get the right people in the right building, sat down and having the right discussion.
I'd like to bring up, why, Dan, why are you doing this now, and not last week when we had the meeting when Brian was here, when a lot of this could have been
Dan wasn't here,
negotiated at that
if I
time?
remember correctly, so it's hard for him to speak if he's not present.
well, Greta's in here,
We were on vacation, weren't you?
I was on vacation.
and you weren't home,
I was home. It was a staycation.
okay,
But it's
So you couldn't make the
vacation,
meeting?
vacation.
Lee,
Joan,
he didn't, he chose not to be here for whatever reason. I don't know if he has to defend his reason.
No, he doesn't have to, but it should have been done previously, not,
Well, let's,
A week
the,
before.
if you look at the timeline, Scott, Thursday was when the contract came back.
I know when the contract came back, you
Right,
had
and-
access to the contract.
That was when you,
Kevin-
that was
Kevin
when,
commented
and
on it.
Kevin's comments were, whatever you said to Kevin and was forwarded on to Brian or to the county. The response came back on Thursday of last week at 3-something in the afternoon. So it wouldn't have made any difference.
so is this gonna make any difference?
If he had had the comments, these additional comments, when I gave him my comments, they could have decided on them.
We wouldn't have known what the county's comeback was.
So so what we've done now is we said, okay, we can push the county and they're gonna move, so now we're gonna just try to push them again, is what it's looking like to me, because they moved on this. We're gonna just try to move them again.
Well, that's what I was trying to talk about, if they don't move on this, if we send this in,
Right. And they
and they
don't,
don't, what are we gonna do then? Is it still gonna be, no, everybody's gonna vote no to not pass this contract? Or pass it again, or whatever we can do, I don't know. I think we're making a big mistake.
Right now, I hear that we're talking about shoulda, coulda, wouldas and what is going to happen in the future. And I think we need to probably vote on that motion and see if we're going to pass that. And maybe we can talk about what's going to happen later after we figure out what happens after that motion is voted on.
Can you read that, motion that I made, please?
Motion for the highway superintendent to meet with the town attorney to reflect with the changes that,
why, the town board has this agreement with the county, that's the town.
Okay, maybe in one town board member be involved with it.
Or have the town board member meet with. I'm always a phone call away.
for Dan and a town board member to meet with Kevin to make the changes.
To recommend the changes per our attorney's opinion.
Do we want to name a town board member?
I'll do it unless someone else wants to.
Doctor's appointments are so screwy, I couldn't, I hate to commit to it and then
Perhaps
not be able to
Karen?
do it.
Oh, no. Just kidding. I'm willing to do it if the board's approved.
Karen,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Charlie,
Yes,
Joan,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes. Anyone else like to take advantage of privilege of the floor?
Yeah, I will. This issue, to me, it sounds like you're talking to the surface. And you're getting no place. Somebody gotta do something, either right or wrong. If you wanna get it done, you gotta get it done. But somebody, you could talk about this for till doomsday.
What we've been doing for the last 6 months.
Yeah. It still ain't done. I don't like the idea of the county saying, well, we're coming down here and plow the roads. The roads never been plowed by the county down here before. And I don't know why they want to now, but you say you're trying to save money. Maybe they're saving money, but I don't see where the town's gaining money. So. Never had this problem before. And if you want to do a 1-year contract, do it. And see how it works out. If it's, I would say in other language, but if it doesn't work out, you just don't do it again. You gotta get it done. Pretty soon it'll be November. October starting Saturday.
I would like to speak from a taxpayer standpoint.
Sure.
I heard several of you mention, the employees, you're concerned about the employees. I can only assume if you don't have $140,000 of income and you don't have work for your employees, that's where the cut should be. Is that you're gonna have employees who don't have work to do because the county is down here plowing our roads. I would like to see the employment kept here and sign the contract, make it better next year.
I've got something to say about that. We have 4 plow routes. We have 4 MEOs. One gets sick, what do? One breaks a leg, what do you do?
What do you do now?
So hear me out. So what has happened in years past, and you're new, you know, you've been here long enough, that we usually have 3 routes. We have 4 men. Somebody's out sick, that 4th man comes on and plows. This is a scary situation that we're in right now because we're plowing the village. With 4 men, 3 routes, and then the village.
You're gonna have work that's not gonna need to be done by somebody. Yeah, there's gonna be instances, maybe where you're shorthanded, but on a daily basis, you're gonna have work that's being done by employees from Custer County and not the town of Sterling.
Next year, we're not plowing the village, so there's another $60,000 we're losing.
No, we've got 2 years yet.
We have 2 years.
There's 2
There's 2
seasons.
years left.
Yes.
For 2 years, we're not,
We've got this year and next year.
Through next one.
to the end of 2024.
22, 23, 23, 24.
Everybody good? Motion?
Motion adjourned.
That's a good question.
All in favor?
I,
Hey, Scott, is it gonna snow?
when,
I don't know.
this year? Yeah. I can promise you that. What's that, Jim?
I was gonna ask you, if you're gonna set up another special meeting.
I'm on vacation next week.